So before I get started, just let me go ahead and preface this by the fact that I'm a big geek, wearables geek. I got, my home is super connected, everything from connected Wi-Fi to smart TVs. I think I have somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 gadgets, PCs, laptops, tablets, whatnot. And also understand that we exist because people do bad things, right? We always talk about this panacea called the internet, and it's great and it's wonderful and it gives us so much opportunity, but there's a dark side to it. And our job is to really understand what's going on in the dark side and do whatever we can to protect consumers and businesses from the types of stuff that the bad actors are trying to figure out every second of every day. So a lot of this is going to seem like fear-mongering and it's a lot of big numbers, a lot of stuff that's going on, but the intent is to really drive awareness around the intersection between what's going on in connected devices, wearables in particular, and what we do in security to make you understand some of the challenges we face, especially as we look forward in the next couple of years. So why is this important? A couple of years ago, you all recall all the big retail point-of-sale breaches, right? Target, Home Depot, Neiman Marcus all got hacked and all the credit cards got exposed. And that was bad, right? But during that process, the credit card companies got really, really good at determining fraudulent activities on credit cards. So basically, the average life of a breached credit card is just a couple days now. And actually, we saw some instances in the last couple months where now the bad actors are actually trying to take a breached credit card and determine what the new number is going to be so they can start using a new number on the credit card once the breached credit card is exposed. But as valuable as that is, it pales in comparison to what the hackers have really done over the past year and a half or so. And if you look at the last year and a half or so, what they really looked at is try to get access to data that identifies the individual. For example, they've been doing a lot of healthcare breaches and other large breaches trying to get access to that information. The reason why is that data is worth, on average, 10 to 20 times that of a breached credit card. A breached credit card today is about $1 or $2 in the dark web. If you can get somebody's full credentials, that's worth anywhere from $10 to $20, right? And the reason for that is it's stuff that you can't easily change, right? You can't change your social security number. You can't change your health history. You can't change your date of birth. You can change your address, but it's kind of a pain because you actually have to move. So the stuff that you have to do to change that information is extremely hard, right? And unlike the credit card companies have gotten really good at detecting fraud and understanding when bad behaviors are going on against credit card, insurance companies, because of things like HIPAA and other, the fact that a lot of people have multiple providers, they struggle to aggregate all the data and really track fraudulent behavior. So today, the point of this and the point of this whole presentation, if you don't take anything out of this, remember this, that the stuff that the bad guys are going after today and track it in the news is after that information that identifies you as an individual because it's a long tail thing. It's hard to change, and once they have it, you're kind of in a bad way. Here's a snapshot of the growth of this market. If you guys are here this week, you probably know this. It is actually a hyper-growth market. Right now, if we have, I think, total worldwide, some 6 billion connected devices. The estimates range of total connected devices. Most of the analysis is coming in at 20 to 50 billion connected devices by 2020. There are some firms who have predicted as many 200 billion connected devices. So the point of this is that there's a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity here. And the challenge is, and this is a reflection of what a lot of those devices do. Most of those devices today are wearable devices. So those are things you're connecting to yourself either for medical reasons or for fitness reasons to kind of track your health and behaviors and stuff like that. So it's all good stuff. You're collecting the information that's important to you to help you become healthier and do things to really enhance and enrich your life. However, is that the right one? Go back one. So last year, about a year and a half ago, HP did research and they looked at the top 10 devices deployed in the home. So we've got this situation where we have devices coming on en masse, millions and millions of devices coming on practically every day. And HP decided, let's go take a look at those devices that are being used most commonly in the home, your smart TVs, your thermostats, and things like that. They found on average that each of those devices had 25 vulnerabilities. And from a security practitioner basis, these are the types of vulnerabilities that kind of made our skin crawl. Things like not requiring a password reset, not using encrypted communications, not requiring complex passwords. Most of these devices that were coming online are managed through some sort of cloud service, and the web was done so poorly that you could do things like cross-site scripting and things to really easily access the information that was being collected by all these devices coming online. So the challenge that we're facing today is that you have all these devices coming on en masse, and most all companies today are solving for time to market and convenience. They're foregoing any thought about security. They're thinking, well, let's just go ahead and get the product in market, and then if we need to make it secure later, we will. The challenge with that is a lot of these devices, connected devices, wearables, you name it, are headless, and it's extremely difficult to get that software to be updated and to have a better security posture. So our biggest concern right now is that as these devices come on en masse, the attack surface is growing exponentially, and giving the bad actors that much more access and ability to collect all that information and start building profiles. In fact, we actually work a lot with law enforcement, and we did a botnet takedown last year in Europe. And as part of that, we actually went to the bad guy's house. This was obviously not by ourselves with law enforcement. And we found records for people that they've really gone deep in. And there's this guy from Norwich, England. And so we went to his house, we knocked on his door, and we said, are you, let's say, John Smith? Said, yes. Well, we're law enforcement, we did this botnet takedown, and here's what this guy had on you. And he had everything. Date of birth, address, mother's maiden name, every single username, password he had on every single account they had. Everything. There was nothing that they didn't have. And he scratched his head. And his question to us is, well, what do we do? How do I go fix this? How do I go pull this data back? And that's the rub. Once the data is out there en masse, it's all been impossible to pull it back. So that's why it's important today that as you build these new augmented reality or wearable devices, that you're doing it in such a way that's taking the data responsibly and using it with the best intention for that of the user. So the data is being collected. It's huge. If you look at all the different stuff that's being collected, everything from spatial data to physical activity, your GPS location, what's going on around you. I remember I was at a conference in San Francisco about middle of last year, and it was a panel discussion, and one of the panelists was all excited. It was an innovation type of thing, and he was all excited because he's just finishing an application for a phone that basically turns on every single sensor on that phone. So the location sensor, the microphone, the camera, every sensor that phone had on is being turned on. And the question I asked him, well, have you thought about the privacy of that? And see, that's the rub. They're building these capabilities and trying to build this data or collect this data en masse, but they're not thinking about the consequences of that. And the consequences, as we talked about before, are pretty dire. It gives the bad actors to do things like, steal your identity, insurance fraud, stalking. I didn't bring it today because, quite honestly, the battery died in my other phone. But I typically, when I'm giving this presentation, I have my Android phone in my pocket, and on it, I'm running a Bluetooth sniffer. What I'm doing is I'm detecting every single device that it can hear, and then I'm explaining this is what I could do with this data. But I have the information so I can stalk you. Basically, it captures the signal strength of any broadcasting device, and I can follow you around at a healthy distance. You don't even know I'm there. So that's the rub. There's just so much you could do by the massive collection of this data from wearables that's all being collected. And the point of this presentation is really to talk about that point of aggregation is really the thing I'm most concerned about today, which is smartphones. So let's talk a little bit about the ecosystem and where bad things can take place. And I guess to kind of get, I was going to say there's good news, but there's really not. It's kind of a bad news slide. Basically, everything on here is easily exploitable, right? I would argue probably the most challenging thing is typically the wearable, just because in most cases that's a Bluetooth device and it's a proximity type of stuff. So unless you're a guy like me who's up here with a Bluetooth sniffer who can explain and do some things with it, it's really kind of it's a hard thing to hack into. But if you look at the data goes to your smartphone, and your smartphone is sitting there collecting and synthesizing all this data from all these different wearables. You know, think about my own self. I have 2 fitness monitors, and it's not necessarily, I'm not sure if it's a wearable device or what it is, but I actually use a Bluetooth connected blood pressure cuff. So when I go to my doctor, I can say, well, here's what I've done for blood pressure checks over the past month or 2. Here's my physical activity. Do I need to make any changes to my medicine, blah, 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 blah. So, but the challenge is that all that data is flowing to the phone, and then in most cases, that data is also flowing to some server up in the sky. So the challenge here is that the data can be exploited either while it's moving or while it's at rest. It really depends on what the attack looks like. And we've shown in almost every case, and I'll explain what I consider to be the ultimate wearable hack towards the end of this, the kind of stuff we can do regardless of what type of device it is. Obviously, probably the most significant challenge is if you get access to the cloud server, because that's going to give out information on every single item in there. In fact, I read, I think it was last week, Tumblr was breached. I think some 68 million username passwords got into the wild. And the challenge with that, and the bad actors know this, is that almost every time there's a breach, the top 10 passwords never change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, password 1. The top 10 passwords never change. So basically what we're doing is we're giving, again, the bad actors this insight that says, well, geez, you know, if John Smith is using this password, now we have a couple of accounts where he's demonstrated he's using that one. Chances are he's using that same information for his banking account, his health access, and all that sort of stuff. So that gives him that in to get that additional information. And it almost always plays out. In fact, we saw a piece of malware in the wild, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. That's what it was doing. It was detecting the type of password that was being used in a couple key accounts. Then it would go to the device, be it a PC or a smartphone, and actually use that username combination within the apps on that device to see if they could access things like their banks and their financial institutions and health records and stuff like that. So the point of this is that any point along this area, and along this ecosystem, is vulnerable. And what's that mean for you as device manufacturers, wearables manufacturers? Well, if things go really, really bad, and you wake up one day and you're the headline in the New York Times, you can expect to pay about $217 for every record that's been breached. So if you have, in Tumblr's case, 68 million records breached, they can expect to pay about $217 in record for remediation, you know, turning on monitoring services for their customers, and a whole host of remediation that they have to do internally. So it's extremely expensive for you to not have security in there in a meaningful way. The amount of time to take a recovery for your brand is about a year. So you're on the headlines of the New York Times, something really bad's happened, you can expect it to be about a year. There are some instances where you're never going to come back. If you recall Ashley Madison, I think it was early last year, they were breached. Every Ashley Madison user, and Ashley Madison, for you who don't know, was a site where if you were married, you could go find somebody else and have a relationship. So anyways, basically all that got out there, and they will no longer come back. We don't see any possible potential for them to come back, at least as Ashley Madison. 5 minutes left? Holy smokes. All right, I'm going to have to move along a little bit. So anyways, it takes about a year to recover your reputation. And then your brand value, you can expect to lose about 140 to 330 million just in the value of your brand. All right, you may or may not make that over time, but anyways, it's a big cost to your earnings per share. Your shareholders aren't going to be too happy because you didn't really do a good job in protecting your users. So I'm going to go through these next slides pretty quickly because apparently I only have 5 minutes left. I believe that the weakest link in this whole thing is your smartphone, and here's why. First of all, roughly 30% of smartphones today are not PIN protected. So if you look to your left and look to your right, one of you people don't have a PIN protected phone, which is the simplest thing for somebody to go do and access. The second thing is very few people actually enable the software to find a phone should it be lost. If my iPhone is out of my sight, I would brick it in a second and not even worry about the 8, 9, whatever I paid for it. To me, it's money that I'm happy to be rid of it because I don't want that data getting out there because everything's on my phone. Only a fraction install security software, right? Protect you from malware, protect you from connecting to bad Wi-Fi's, everything out there. Only a couple percentage of people actually put the phone on there that allows you to actually wipe it should it be lost. So it's one thing to be able to locate it. That's part of the equation, and I guess that's a good part. But if you can't actually wipe the data, it's probably not going to do you much good if the phone's been stolen. And then finally, very few people actually enable encryption. So if your phone gets stolen and they just connect it to any device, it'll come up as a drive, and they can access everything on the phone anyways. Exasperating this a little bit is the fact that there's just an extraordinarily amount of bad things going on in app stores today. Right now we have, I think, 8 million mobile malware samples. That's growing about 17% quarter over quarter now. We're going to see a dramatic growth in that because a lot of the malware writers in mobile are doing what we call kitting. And kitting is basically finding a piece of malware that works, and then verifying it, and then making it available on the dark web. So we're going to see a dramatic increase in that here in the next couple quarters. But we actually saw this instance where people would download software and actually there'd be malware in the actual application, and that malware or that application would install other applications to kind of build this profile. So each application would be hard to determine the type of malware, but the combination of multiple apps would allow for a more richer malware type of attack to take place, everything from rooting the phone to whatever they want to do with the device. I'm going to skip this one because I don't have time. So what do we do from a wearables perspective? First of all, have security be designed in, not an afterthought. I can't express this strongly enough that doing some simple security precautions when you bring that device to market, requiring password resets, using encrypted communications, making sure you have strong session management, are all the types of things that are going to make your wearable not be that headline we talked about before. With mobile devices, install third-party, malware or antivirus software. Turn off antennas that you don't use. For example, if you don't have anything connected in Bluetooth, you might just well turn off. It's not going to save you some battery life, but it's also going to not allow people like me to sniff that device and potentially do some malicious thing. Only use trusted app stores. You'd be surprised at how many people use third-party app stores that aren't trusted, and that's where we see the most malware being taken right now. And make sure, and this is probably the most important thing, apply updates to applications in the operating system when they're made available. Without fail, those almost always include security fixes that will protect you against some of the attacks that we see happening today. If your cloud service is part of your wearables ecosystem, again, require strong passwords, good strong session management, encrypted communications. Make sure you have well-documented privacy statements. Make sure those privacy statements, and this is the big thing, if you only do with the data what you say you're going to do with the data. Every time we see somebody successfully litigated, especially in the security space, it's because when something bad happened, it was determined that they weren't doing what they say they were going to do, either from an encryption perspective or the use of the data. So make sure you do document what you're going to do and make sure the consumer is aware of that. I don't have time for this because I think I'm probably almost out of time now, right? Pretty close. So the ultimate wearable hack, and I'll leave it in this. 4 years ago, at our Focus annual user conference in Vegas, we showed how using a laptop and a directional antenna from Radio Shack, we could take total control of an insulin pump. We could turn it on, we could turn it off, we could change the dosage, we could fully drain the device at our will. And for those of you that have friends who use insulin pumps, you'll know that if you turn that device on, you fully drain it, basically that user's terminal in about 5 minutes. So that's the type of stuff that we do. Again, our intent for doing these sort of things is to help educate the device manufacturers here. Here's what we can do. If we can do it, then a bad actor can do it with malicious intent. And where this gets really interesting, I think, for this audience is this is a Google patent they applied for recently. It's an ocular implant. Imagine having a wearable that's actually the lens of your eye. Imagine somebody figuring out what the vulnerabilities are in this and actually affecting your ability to see and use this type of device. Pretty scary stuff. And that's because I think I'm out of time. I think I'm actually a little bit over, right? So I rushed through this. I went a little bit faster than I was hoping.